Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Infidelity Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world are you watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Trevor Roth stood at his office window, watching the Seattle skyline fade into dusk. The notification on his phone screen still glowed. Contract secured, Department of Defense Cybersecurity Initiative. After 15 years of military intelligence and 5 years building his security consulting firm from the ground up, landing this contract should have been the pinnacle of his week. Instead, his mind kept returning to the small inconsistencies at home. The way his twin daughter's laughter had grown quieter. The subtle shift in Candace's phone habits. Most people would have dismissed these as ordinary changes, but Trevor hadn't survived 3 tours in military intelligence by ignoring his instincts. His office phone buzzed. "Mr. Roth, Detective Cohen is here for your security consultation. Send him up, Angela." Trevor straightened his tie, pushing personal concerns aside. Professional first, always. Detective Jay Cohen was exactly what Trevor expected from their phone calls. Sharp eyes, practical suit, and the measured movements of someone who'd seen too much to take anything at face value. They spent an hour discussing the police department's cyber vulnerabilities before Cohen brought up something interesting. "You know, Roth, your name came up in an insurance fraud case I worked last month." Different Roth, obviously, but the perp had orchestrated his own death for the payout. Made me wonder how many people think they can get away with that kind of thing. Trevor's mind flashed to Candace's recent interest in their finances. "More than you'd expect, Detective. People underestimate the digital trail they leave." After Cohen left, Trevor pulled up his calendar. 8-year-old Emma and Sarah were at Uncle James's house again. The friendship between Candace and James Willard had always seemed innocent enough. They'd met through Trevor's sister Lorraine at a charity event 5 years ago. But lately, his phone buzzed with a text from Candace. Girls had so much fun with James. They're exhausted. Ordering takeout tonight. Trevor's fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing. "No problem. Wrapping up here soon?" When he arrived home, the house was oddly quiet. The twins sat at the dinner table, pushing orange chicken around their plates. Candace was typing on her phone, barely looking up when he entered. "Daddy!" Sarah's usual enthusiasm seemed forced. Emma wouldn't meet his eyes. "How was your day with Uncle James?" Trevor kept his voice light, watching their reactions. Emma's fork clattered against her plate. Sarah glanced at Candace before answering. "Fine. We just played games and stuff. James is so good with them," Candace said, still focused on her phone. "He bought them those art supplies they wanted." Trevor noticed Emma's slight flinch at James's name. His daughter had never been good at hiding her emotions, a trait he'd always encouraged, believing honesty built strength. Now that same trait was setting off every alarm bell in his mind. "Quite generous of him," Trevor remarked, studying Candace's expression. "We should have him over for dinner sometime." "Oh, he's so busy lately," Candace replied quickly. Too quickly. That new real estate development is taking all his time. After dinner, Trevor helped the girls with their homework while Candace took a work call in the garden. He'd installed highly sensitive directional microphones out there 3 months ago, when the late-night calls had started. Tonight's recording would go into his growing collection of evidence. Once the girls were in bed, Trevor went to his home office, ostensibly to work on the new government contract. Instead, he checked his laptop's security logs. Someone had accessed it while he was at work. The same someone who'd been looking up his life insurance policies. The searches were amateur, clumsy. Maximum life insurance payout. How long before life insurance pays out? Accidental death versus murder insurance claims. Each search strengthened his suspicion that Candace thought she was smarter than she was. That would be her downfall. Trevor pulled up the camera feed from James's house, installed during one of his security consulting visits 2 months ago. The exterior cameras showed Candace's car had been there 4 times last week, not just the twice she'd mentioned. The interior feeds were more interesting. James pacing in his study, talking on the phone. It has to look natural, Candy. These things take time. A notification popped up on Trevor's screen, movement in the girls' room. He switched feeds immediately, watching as Sarah tossed in her bed, clearly distressed. He was about to go check on her when Emma climbed into her sister's bed, hugging her close. "It's okay," Emma whispered, We don't have to keep secrets forever. Trevor's hands clenched into fists. His daughters were carrying burdens they shouldn't have to bear. Whatever game Candace and James were playing, involving the girls had been their biggest mistake. The next morning, Trevor adjusted his approach. He started taking the girls to school himself, using the time to rebuild their trust. He asked about their friends, their teachers, their dreams, everything except James. Let them volunteer that information when they were ready. A week passed. Trevor gathered more evidence, recorded more conversations, and watched his wife's facade crack in small ways. She'd stopped asking about his day, stopped pretending to be interested in his new contract, started taking more calls from clients that always seemed to come when Trevor was supposed to be at work. The breaking point came during bedtime stories. Trevor was reading The Paper Bag Princess, Sarah's favorite, when Emma suddenly burst into tears. "Daddy," she sobbed, "we've been bad." Trevor set the book aside, keeping his voice gentle but firm. "You could never be bad, sweetheart." "What's wrong?" Sarah joined her sister's tears. "Mommy told us we had to keep a secret. She said we'd get in big trouble if we told." "You can tell me anything," Trevor assured them, his heart racing even as his exterior remained calm. "No one will be in trouble for telling the truth." Emma hiccuped through her confession. "Mommy said Uncle James is our real daddy." "But that's not true, is it, Daddy? We don't look like him at all." "She said we can't tell you because it would make you sad," Sarah added, her small hands clutching Trevor's shirt. And they said something about an accident when a policy grows up." Trevor gathered both girls into his arms, his military training helping him maintain composure despite the rage building inside him. "Listen to me, both of you. You are my daughters. Nothing anyone says will ever change that. And you did exactly the right thing telling me the truth. Are you going to tell Mommy we told?" Emma's voice quivered. "No, sweetheart. This is our secret now. Sometimes keeping secrets is wrong, but sometimes they protect people we love. Right now, we need to protect each other. Can you be brave for me?" Both girls nodded, their tears slowly subsiding. Trevor stayed until they fell asleep, their small hands still clutching his shirt. Only then did he allow himself to feel the full weight of their revelation. In his office, Trevor activated every surveillance system he'd installed. The cameras in James's house showed Candace's car in the driveway. On a night, she was supposedly at a client dinner. He pulled up the audio feed. "The girls are starting to ask questions." Candace's voice came through clearly. "We need to move faster. Patience, baby." James's tone was condescending, arrogant. "The policy has a 2-year contestability period. One more month, and it's clean. Besides, your brother-in-law's working on the paperwork to make it bulletproof." Trevor's hand tightened on his mouse. Marshall Huffman, his own attorney, and Candace's brother, was involved. The betrayal ran deeper than he'd imagined. "I don't like waiting," Candace whined. "He's been so suspicious lately. Always asking about the girls, checking the accounts. Let him be suspicious. By the time he figures anything out, it'll be too late. $8 million, baby. We can take the girls somewhere nice, somewhere he'll never find them." "The girls worship him," Candace scoffed. "It's pathetic. Always daddy this and daddy that. A few years with you, as their father will fix that." Trevor started a new file on his secure server, labeling it Operation Clean Slate. The first entry was simple: surveillance transcripts proving conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. He added the girls' testimony about being told to lie about their paternity. A quick check of his bank accounts showed small transfers Candace had been making, never enough to trigger alerts, but adding up to significant amounts over time. Classic tradecraft, poorly executed. She'd learned it from James, no doubt, but neither of them had his training. Trevor pulled up James Willard's background check. The real one, not the superficial one he'd shown Candace years ago when she'd first introduced them. 3 marriages, 3 deaths, 3 insurance payouts. Each time under a different name, each death ruled accidental. James had been good, but he'd grown sloppy, confident. The final piece clicked when Trevor found the connection between James and Lorraine. His sister hadn't randomly introduced James to Candace at a charity event. They'd known each other for years, had worked together on other insurance scams. Lorraine had handpicked Candace, groomed her for this role. "You should have stuck to smaller targets, James," Trevor muttered. adding Lorraine's involvement to his evidence file. His phone buzzed, a text from Candace, working late tonight. Don't wait up. Trevor smiled coldly at the phone. No problem, he texted back. The girls and I will manage. He opened his laptop and began typing, his military training shifting from defense to offense. They wanted to play games? He'd show them what a real operator could do. The pieces were in place. Now it was time to spring the trap. Trevor watched the surveillance feed of Candace's latest meeting with James through his laptop. Their arrogance was becoming their weakness. Neither had bothered checking for cameras at their regular meeting, spot a quiet corner of Woodland Park that had excellent sight lines for his recently installed equipment. I've never seen anyone so oblivious, remarked Zachary Butler, the private investigator Trevor had hired last week. Butler sat across from Trevor's desk, his weathered face reflecting 20 years of catching people at their worst. Your wife actually believes she's being subtle with those bank transfers. Subtlety was never her strong suit, Trevor replied, adjusting the audio. What did you find in James's background? Butler pulled out a thick file. James Willard is actually James Wesley Williams, previously known as James Warren Wilson and James Wallace Wright. Man likes his alliteration. He spread out 3 death certificates, 3 previous marriages, 3 tragic accidents, 3 insurance payouts. Different states, different names, but same MO. Trevor studied the documents. How did he slip past background checks? He didn't. Your sister Lorraine helped create his current identity. She's got connections in county records offices across 3 states. Found emails between them going back 7 years. Butler's expression darkened. They've done this before, Mr. Roth. Your wife wasn't their first target, just their most ambitious one. Trevor leaned back, processing this information. The others? 2 successful insurance scams with smaller payouts. Middle-aged men, wealthy but not prominent. Deaths ruled accidental. Butler hesitated. There was a 3rd attempt, but the target's daughter got suspicious. She died in a mugging gone wrong before she could take her concerns to the police. And Lorraine? She's the connector. Finds the targets. Introduces James to unhappy wives at charity events. Takes a percentage for her services. Butler pulled out more photos. Your wife's been meeting her twice a month at the Four Seasons. Always in the spa where phones are prohibited. Smart, except the spa director owes me a favor, Trevor finished. Give me transcripts of those meetings. After Butler left, Trevor reviewed the morning surveillance footage. The twins were at school, their real school, not another play date at James's house. He'd made sure of that by driving them himself, watching them enter the building before activating the tracking devices in their backpacks. Candace had objected to his new morning routine, but Trevor had simply mentioned the latest child abduction news story. She'd backed down, unaware that her own actions had inspired his paranoia. His phone buzzed Marshall Huffman, requesting a meeting about the new government contract. Trevor smiled coldly. His brother-in-law was getting nervous. The law offices of Huffman and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise. Marshall's corner office offered spectacular views of Puget Sound, paid for with billable hours and betrayal. Trevor. Marshall's handshake was too firm, his smile too wide. Thanks for coming. Drink? It's 10 a.m., Marshall. Right. Marshall fumbled with his tie. About those contract documents. Trevor placed a recorder on the desk, red light blinking. Marshall's face went pale. What's this? Insurance, Trevor replied calmly. Against forged signatures on life insurance policies, for example. Marshall sank into his chair. Trevor, I can explain. Explain what? How you help my wife and her lover modify my life insurance without my knowledge. Or how you've been laundering their payouts from previous scams through your firm's client accounts. They said they'd kill me if I didn't help. Marshall's composure cracked. James has people, dangerous people. And Lorraine, you don't know what she's capable of. Actually, I do. Trevor's voice remained steady. That's why you're going to tell me everything, starting with their plans for me, and ending with every detail of their previous operations. If they find out, they won't. As far as they know, this meeting is about the DoD contract. But if you don't start talking, the recording of you admitting to insurance fraud goes to the Bar Association and the FBI. Marshall talked for 2 hours. Every detail, every plan, every contingency they'd prepared. Trevor recorded it all, occasionally prompting with questions that revealed his already extensive knowledge. By the end, Marshall was practically begging to help build the case against them. "What do you need me to do?" "For now, nothing. Stay scared, stay cooperative, and most importantly, stay quiet." Trevor stood to leave. "And Marshall, if anything happens to my daughters, I'll assume you warned them. Are we clear?" Marshall nodded, sweat staining his collar. Back at his office, Trevor reviewed the DNA test results Butler had obtained. The twins were definitively his daughters, not that he'd ever doubted it. Candace's lie to James about their paternity was just another manipulation, designed to strengthen his commitment to their plan. His phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "We should talk about your wife. Lunch tomorrow? Sophia Chun." Trevor had been expecting this. Sophia Chun, Candace's supposed friend, had been watching him all week. Butler's background check revealed her connection to James's previous scams. She was their cleaner, the one who handled loose ends. "Cafe Lotus noon," he texted back. Time to add another piece to his collection. Sophia arrived at precisely 12, dressed expensively, but without taste. Her attempt at a sympathetic smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Roth, thank you for meeting me." She slid into the booth. "I hate to be the bearer of bad news." "Then don't be," Trevor interrupted. "Instead, tell me how long you've worked for James Willard, or whatever his real name is." Sophia's smile vanished. "I don't know what you mean. Like you didn't know Michael Chin in Oakland? Your late husband whose life insurance paid out so generously?" Trevor placed photos on the table. "Sophia with James, dated 5 years ago. Before you try to blackmail me with information about my wife's affair, consider what else I might know. You're bluffing." But her hands shook as she reached for her purse. "The gun in your purse is registered to a Sandra Park in Portland. The same Sandra Park who witnessed James's second wife's accidental death." "Interesting coincidence." Sophia's hand froze. Trevor continued, his voice low and controlled. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this restaurant, pack your bags, and disappear. If I see you again, every police department investigating James's previous accidents gets an anonymous tip about Sandra Park. They'll kill me, not my problem, but cross me, and I'll make sure you wish they had." After she left, Trevor called Butler. "Follow her. If she contacts anyone, I want to know." That evening, Trevor began the next phase of his plan. He contacted Ray Manning, his former colleague from military intelligence, now working in identity creation for witness protection. "Jesus, Trev," Ray said after hearing the situation. "Your own sister? Family's complicated." Trevor reviewed the new identity documents Ray had prepared. "These are good. How soon can you set up the safe house?" "It's ready now. Coastal property, fully stocked, off the grid. The girls will love the private beach." "Not yet. I need to finish this first." "You sure? We could just disappear them all now. Save you the trouble." Trevor considered it. The direct approach had its appeal, but no, they need to face justice. The girls need to see that. "Your call." "But Trevor, make it clean, make it stick." "That's the plan." Over the next week, Trevor moved methodically. He transferred assets to secure accounts under shell companies Butler had created. He canceled insurance policies, using Marshall's insider knowledge to ensure the changes couldn't be reversed. Candace noticed the financial changes faster than he expected. He arrived home one evening to find her phone logs filled with panic calls to James. "Trevor," she attempted casual conversation over dinner. "Did you make some changes to our accounts?" "I tried to pay some bills today. Just updating our portfolio," he replied smoothly. "The new contract requires additional security measures." "Oh." She pushed food around her plate. "You should tell me about these things. Like you tell me about your meetings with James?" Her fork clattered against the plate. The twins looked up, startled by the tension. "Girls," Trevor said calmly, "why don't you finish dinner in the game room? Take your plates." After they left, Candace tried to recover. "James is just a friend." "Stop." Trevor's voice could have frozen fire. "You're not as clever as you think you are. Neither is James. Or should I call him James Wesley Williams?" The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Then why did you tell our daughters he was their real father? Why did you let him convince you that killing me would solve all your problems?" "Trevor, please." She reached for him, tears starting. I can explain. Save it for your lawyer. He stood up. Oh, and Candace? If you try to run, if you try to take my daughters, remember I found out about your plan? Finding you would be much easier. He left her at the table, shoulders shaking with either sobs or rage. It didn't matter which. Through Marshall, he'd ensure she learned about his upcoming business trip to Big Sur. The trap was almost ready. Butler called late that night. Sophia made contact with James. Got it all on tape. They're planning to accelerate the timeline. Good. Trevor watched the surveillance feed from James's house, where Candace had run crying to her lover. They were panicking, getting sloppy. Keep recording. I want every word. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. James and Candace began researching undetectable poisons, purchased brake fluid removal tools, studied the Big Sur cliffside roads. Every purchase, every search, every conversation was documented and added to Trevor's growing evidence file. Through Marshall, Trevor arranged for Candace to accidentally discover his travel itinerary. The bait was set. Now he just had to wait for them to spring the trap themselves. The coastal fog rolled in thick over Big Sur's cliffs, nature providing perfect cover for an accident. Trevor watched the weather report with grim satisfaction from Ray Manning's safe house, where Emma and Sarah slept peacefully upstairs. Your timing's perfect, Ray said, checking the surveillance feeds. Butler's team just spotted Candace and James loading their car. Got some interesting equipment with them. List it all, Trevor instructed, typing into his laptop. Brake fluid removal kit, purchased from AutoZone 3 days ago. Some chemical compound Butler's guy identified as a nerve agent, amateur stuff, but fatal. Rope, tarp, work gloves. Ray shook his head. They're not exactly criminal masterminds. They never were. Trevor finished his message to Detective Jake Cohen, encrypted but anonymous. That's why they'll walk right into this. The girls stirred upstairs. Trevor had told them they were having a special sleepover at Daddy's friend's house while he handled some work. They'd been quiet lately, watching their mother's increasing agitation with worried eyes. After tonight, they'd never have to carry those burdens again. Butler's voice crackled over the secure line. They're taking the coastal route, just like you predicted. James is driving, Candace riding shotgun. Following your supposed route exactly. And our friend, Detective Cohen's tactical unit, is in position. 4 unmarked vehicles, perfect sight lines on the turnout. Trevor allowed himself a small smile. He'd chosen Detective Cohen carefully. The man's reputation for thoroughness matched his hatred of insurance fraudsters. The anonymous tip about suspicious activity near the cliffside overlook had been enough to pique his interest. The carefully structured trail of evidence did the rest. Through his earpiece, Trevor heard Candace's voice from Butler's surveillance. Are you sure this will work? Baby, I've done this before. James's arrogance dripped through the audio. The brake line gets cut, he hits the curve too fast, and gravity does the rest. Clean, simple, untraceable. What about the girls? Once we get the insurance payout, we'll take them somewhere nice. They'll forget him eventually. Trevor's hands clenched, but his voice remained steady as he radioed Cohen. You getting this? Crystal clear, the detective replied. Your brother-in-law's recording equipment is excellent. Ready when you are? Trevor checked his watch. By now, Marshall would be at the police station, giving his official statement. The lawyer had folded completely once he realized the extent of Trevor's evidence. Survival instinct trumped family loyalty. Movement at the turnout, Butler reported. They're pulling in, they're checking the area. James is getting the tools from the trunk. Trevor switched to the live feed. The fog gave the scene an otherworldly quality as Candace and James moved with practiced efficiency. They'd done this before, but never with such an audience. Now, Trevor commanded. Spotlights pierced the fog. Police vehicles materialized from hidden positions surrounding the turnout. Cohen's voice boomed through a megaphone. Police, drop your weapons and put your hands where we can see them. The look of shock on Candace's face was almost comical. James, showing more survival instinct, tried to run directly into the arms of 2 waiting officers. The nerve agent's in his left jacket pocket, Trevor informed Cohen, and checked the trunk for brake fluid removal tools. Through the cameras, he watched the scene unfold. Candace, hysteria rising in her voice, This is a mistake. We were just out for a drive. At midnight, Cohen approached with handcuffs, with nerve agents and brake line cutters. An interesting choice for romance. I want my lawyer. You mean Marshall Huffman? He's already given us his statement. Cohen's smile was cold. Amazing what people will confess when faced with conspiracy to commit murder charges. James tried a different approach. You've got nothing but circumstantial evidence. Actually, Cohen nodded to a tech team retrieving equipment from hidden locations around the turnout. We have quite a bit more than that. Your entire conversation about brake lines and insurance payouts, for instance. Multiple angles, excellent audio quality. Trevor watched Candace's face as realization dawned. Trevor, she whispered. He knew. Oh, he knew, Cohen confirmed. He knew about James's previous victims, too. 3 dead wives in 3 states. Did you really think you were special, Mrs. Roth? That you were the first one he'd promised a new life to? As they led Candace and James away in separate cars, Trevor felt no satisfaction, only cold certainty that justice was being served. The evidence Butler had gathered was overwhelming. Recorded conversations, documented money trails, forged documents, and now murder tools caught in the act. The trial, when it came, was swift and decisive. Trevor sat in the courtroom each day, his posture military straight, his expression unreadable. The prosecution presented a methodical case, each piece of evidence tightening the noose. Marshall Huffman's testimony was particularly damaging. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he detailed every aspect of the conspiracy, the forged documents, the money laundering, the careful groundwork laid over years. Mr. Huffman, the prosecutor asked, why did you agree to help modify Mr. Roth's life insurance policies without his knowledge? Marshall dabbed at his forehead with a handkerchief. James Willard or Williams, or whatever his real name is, he had evidence of other illegal activities. My sister Lorraine introduced us. She said it would be simple. Forge a few signatures, update a few policies. By the time I realized they were planning murder, I was in too deep. And Mrs. Roth's role? She orchestrated most of it. The policy changes, the secret accounts. She used the girls as cover for meetings with James. Said Trevor deserved it for being. He glanced at Trevor. For being too focused on his daughters instead of her. Candace's testimony was a masterclass in self-pity. She took the stand in a conservative dress, tears ready. I was manipulated, she claimed, voice trembling. James said he loved me, that Trevor didn't appreciate me. He promised we'd raise the girls together. Is that why you told your daughters Mr. Willard was their real father? The prosecutor interrupted. I never. We have recordings, Mrs. Roth, of you instructing your 8-year-old daughters to lie about their parentage, of you discussing their future after their father's planned death. Would you like to hear them? Candace's mask cracked. They're better off without him. All he cared about was his precious daughters, his precious job. James understood me. James understood insurance payouts, the prosecutor corrected. Just like he understood his previous 3 wives, all now deceased under suspicious circumstances. James's testimony was worse. He tried to escape during a recess, making it halfway down the courthouse steps before security tackled him. The additional charges added years to his sentence. Lorraine, when finally confronted with her role, turned on her conspirators immediately. It was all James's idea. I just made introductions. Introductions that led to 3 deaths, the prosecutor noted, and nearly a 4th. Tell me, Ms. Huffman, how much did you earn for each successful introduction? The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The verdicts came down like hammer blows. James Willard Williams Wilson, right. Guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, multiple counts of insurance fraud. 25 years to life. Candace Roth. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, endangering the welfare of minors. 25 years. Lorraine Huffman. Guilty of conspiracy, accessory to murder fraud. 15 years. Marshall Huffman received 5 years for his cooperation. Sophia Chun, caught trying to flee the country, faced charges for her role in the previous murders. Through it all, Trevor remained focused on his daughters. They attended therapy, slowly processing their mother's betrayal. He moved them to coastal Maine, using seized assets from James's previous schemes to buy a private beach house. The fresh start helped them heal. 5 years later, Trevor stood on that beach, watching 13-year-old Emma and Sarah chase waves. They'd flourished in their new life, understanding that family wasn't about blood, but about trust and protection. Detective Cohen's yearly update had arrived that morning. Candace and James's final appeal had been rejected. Their 25-year sentences stood firm. Trevor had filed for divorce the day after their arrests, ensuring all assets were protected for the girl's future. "Dad," Emma called, "come see what we found." Trevor walked down to where his daughters were examining tide pools, their faces bright with discovery. They'd learned to trust again, to laugh again. Most importantly, they'd learned that justice, served cold and calculated, was more satisfying than revenge. The only remnant of their past was a small box in Trevor's office containing the evidence that had ended their mother's betrayal. He kept it as a reminder not of what he'd lost, but of what he'd protected his daughter's future, their safety, and their understanding that evil never goes unpunished. Epilogue. 10 years later, Trevor Roth stood at his office window overlooking Portland's waterfront, reading Detective Cohen's latest annual report. 10 years had passed since the trial that had exposed one of New England's most calculated insurance fraud conspiracies. Final appeal status update. The email began. Candace Roth, inmate number 247391. Appeal denied unanimously by the Supreme Judicial Court. Psychological evaluation confirms continued manipulative behavior. Multiple disciplinary actions for attempting to manipulate younger guards. Maintains innocence despite overwhelming evidence. Current location: Maine Correctional Center, Maximum Security Wing. He scrolled down to the section about James. James Willard/Williams, inmate number 247392. Third escape attempt thwarted. Additional 5 years added to sentence. Previous wives' families have filed civil suits following evidence from cold cases. 2 additional murder charges pending in California. Likely to remain incarcerated for life. A knock at his door interrupted his reading. "Come in." Zachary Butler, now the chief investigator for Roth Security Solutions, entered with a thick file. Age had added more gray to his hair, but his investigator's instincts remained sharp as ever. "Quarterly report on our special monitoring cases," Butler said, placing the file on Trevor's desk. "Thought you want to see this one first." Trevor opened the file. Inside were surveillance photos from the Maine Correctional Center's visitor logs. Candace, her prison-issued uniform hanging loosely on her thinner frame, sat across from a familiar face. "Lorraine's out," Trevor noted unsurprised. His sister had served 8 years of her 15-year sentence, released early for good behavior and cooperation in solving James's previous crimes. She tried visiting Candace 3 times last month, Butler confirmed. Candace refused to see her the first 2 times. This meeting lasted exactly 6 minutes before Candace threw a fit, accusing Lorraine of ruining her life. Any contact with the girls? Attempted. Emma and Sarah's security detail intercepted 3 letters. Standard manipulation tactics, claiming redemption, begging forgiveness, promising explanations. The girls had them marked "Return to Sender" without opening them. Trevor nodded with approval. Emma and Sarah, now 18, had grown into remarkably resilient young women. They processed their mother's betrayal through years of therapy, emerging stronger rather than bitter. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Roth, Detective Cohen is here for your meeting." Jake Cohen had aged well, his promotion to chief of detectives adding authority rather than weight to his bearing. He'd made his career on the Roth case, using it to establish a specialized unit focusing on complex financial crimes and murder conspiracies. "How are the girls?" Cohen asked after they'd settled in Trevor's private conference room. "Starting college next month. Sarah's studying criminal psychology at Yale. Emma's doing computer forensics at MIT. Pride colored Trevor's voice. "They want to help other families spot the warning signs we missed." "You didn't miss them," Cohen corrected. "You saw them and acted. That's why you're alive and they're in prison." He pulled out his tablet. "Speaking of which, you'll want to see this." Candace's latest prison incident report. The report detailed Candace's most recent scheme, attempting to manipulate a young guard into carrying messages to James. The guard had been part of an integrity test. The messages immediately added to her file. Her privileges had been revoked for 6 months. She hasn't changed, Trevor observed. People like her don't. Cohen scrolled to another document. James, on the other hand, has gotten worse. The psychiatrist's report suggests his narcissistic tendencies have evolved into full psychopathy. He's been connected to 2 deaths in prison, though nothing could be proven. And Marshall, released last month. The Bar Association permanently disbarred him, of course. He's working as a paralegal in Arizona, helping law firms spot insurance fraud. Part of his redemption tour. Trevor thought about his former brother-in-law, who had chosen survival over loyalty that night at Big Sur. Marshall's testimony had been crucial in ensuring maximum sentences for the conspirators. Sophia Chin's trial starts next month, Cohen continued. The evidence you gathered about her role in James's previous murders was essential. She's looking at 20 to life. And Lorraine, keeping her nose clean, surprisingly. She's working at a women's shelter in Oregon, counseling domestic abuse victims. Claims she's trying to prevent others from making her mistakes. Cohen's tone suggested skepticism. We're still monitoring her communications, but so far she's followed every parole restriction. Trevor pulled up the latest report from his daughter's security detail. Emma and Sarah were enjoying a weekend sailing trip with friends, their tracking devices showing them safely within their designated zones. After everything they'd been through, he maintained strict security protocols, not from paranoia, but from experience. The girls want to visit Candace, Trevor said quietly. One last time before college. Cohen raised an eyebrow. Are you considering it? They need closure. Their therapist agrees. They're not the frightened 8-year-old she manipulated anymore. The meeting with Candace was arranged for the following week. Trevor watched through the prison's observation window as his daughters faced their mother for the first time in 10 years. Candace had prepared for the meeting, trying to look as maternal as possible despite her prison uniform. Her practiced tears started immediately. My babies, I've missed you so much. Emma's voice cut through the theatrics. Save it, Mother. We're here to tell you something, not listen to your excuses. Sarah picked up seamlessly where her sister left off. We've read the trial transcripts. All of them. We know exactly what you and James planned. You don't understand, Candace pleaded. I was manipulated. James convinced me. Like you tried to manipulate us? Emma's tone could have frozen fire. Telling us James was our real father? Using us as cover for your murder plans? Making us carry the burden of your secrets? Sarah added. We were 8 years old, Mother. 8. Candace changed tactics, her tears stopping suspiciously quickly. Your father turned you against me. He poisoned you. Dad never had to say anything, Emma interrupted. We had therapy. We learned about narcissistic personality disorder, about manipulation tactics, about sociopathic behaviors. Sound familiar? We're not here for forgiveness, Sarah clarified. We're here to tell you that we understand exactly who and what you are, and to let you know that we're thriving despite you, not because of you. I'm your mother. Candace's mask slipped, showing the rage beneath. Everything I did was for us. No, Emma stood. Everything you did was for yourself. We're Dad's daughters. We learned how to spot lies early. They left Candace sputtering denials and threats. Trevor met them in the prison parking lot, holding them as they shook not with sorrow, but with released tension. Take us home, Dad, Sarah whispered. Home had become a fortress of healing. The beach house in Maine, bought with seized assets from James's previous schemes, had been their sanctuary. Trevor had expanded it over the years, adding security features disguised as luxury amenities. The private beach was monitored by state-of-the-art surveillance, the grounds protected by both technology and trained personnel. Ray Manning, now Trevor's head of security operations, had helped design the security systems. He'd also become something of an uncle to the girls, teaching them self-defense and situational awareness from an early age. Your father's paranoia is going to keep you alive, he'd told them during their first lesson. Learn from it. They had learned. Both girls had earned black belts in Krav Maga. Both could spot surveillance and counter-surveillance. Both understood that their mother's imprisonment didn't guarantee their safety. Trevor's security consulting firm had evolved too. Roth's security solutions specialized in identifying and preventing betrayals like the one he'd experienced. His client list included high-net-worth individuals, corporations worried about insider threats, and even law enforcement agencies. The firm's latest project was particularly satisfying, developing software to detect insurance fraud patterns similar to James's schemes. Several insurance companies had already used it to prevent potential murders disguised as accidents. That evening, Trevor sat with his daughters on their private beach, watching the sunset paint the Atlantic gold. Emma and Sarah had grown into their own versions of his analytical nature. Emma's expressed through computer code, Sarah's through understanding criminal psychology. Candace tried playing victim again, Butler reported by phone. Demanded to see her lawyer right after the girls left. Claimed emotional distress. And James? Still in solitary after his last escape attempt. The evidence from his previous wives' murders has opened 5 cold cases. Prosecutors in 3 states are fighting over who gets to try him first. Trevor ended the call, watching his daughters walk along the shoreline. They'd chosen to keep his name after the divorce, refusing Candace's maiden name even before her conviction. They understood that family wasn't about blood or birth. It was about choices, about protection, about justice. The next morning's mail brought a letter from Marshall Huffman. His former brother-in-law had maintained sporadic contact, sending information about potential insurance fraud cases he spotted in his paralegal work. This letter was different. "I know I can never fully atone," Marshall wrote. "But the fraud detection program I'm developing might help prevent others from facilitating crimes like I did. Would you be willing to review it?" Trevor shared the letter with Cohen during their next meeting. The detective had become a friend over the years, their shared commitment to justice creating a strong bond. "People can change," Cohen observed. "Not Candace or James. They're too far gone. But Marshall? Maybe, Trevor agreed. The girls start college next month. Having another set of eyes watching for potential threats wouldn't hurt. The years had taught Trevor that vigilance wasn't paranoia when the threats were real. Candace still had 15 years on her sentence, but she hadn't stopped scheming. James would likely die in prison, but his old contacts occasionally surfaced. Lorraine had supposedly reformed, but Trevor hadn't survived by taking chances. His daughters understood. They'd grown up knowing that their security measures weren't just their father's overprotection. They were a necessary response to real dangers. They'd learned to balance awareness with living fully, to be cautious without being fearful. That evening, Trevor reviewed Cohen's latest reports one last time before joining Emma and Sarah for dinner. The reports confirmed what he'd always known. Justice served cold was more satisfying than revenge served hot. His wife had tried to betray him, but in doing so, she'd only betrayed herself. His sister had chosen greed over family, but in the process, she'd helped him understand what family truly meant. His daughters had not only survived their mother's betrayal, they'd transformed it into strength, into wisdom, into a determination to help others. They were his greatest victory, living proof that one could face darkness without becoming dark, could overcome betrayal without becoming bitter. The setting sun painted their beach house in shades of gold and shadow. Inside, Emma and Sarah were laughing about their college plans, their voices carrying the confidence of young women who knew they were loved, protected, and strong enough to face whatever came next. Trevor smiled, knowing that his cold calculation had given his daughters something priceless, a future free from their mother's poison, a life built on truth rather than lies, and the unshakable certainty that justice, while sometimes slow, was ultimately inevitable. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.